Hi guys, Dan here. Just wanted to do a bit of a video on pH. pH is a very important part of soil fertility, and this diagram is a really good way of illustrating it. And you can see that depending on the pH of a soil, it affects how much plants can access all of these various major and trace elements. So it's important to have your pH right, and obviously as you can see in the picture, like somewhere between 6.5 and 7.5 is probably a good amount, a good pH to have your soil, so that most plants will grow quite well in that. So the way to do this is just go to get a pH test kit. You can get it from Bunnings. This one here, this brand's Manutech. That's a Manutech one. Go grab one of them. The instructions are inside. They're fairly straightforward, and they've got all the ingredients you need and a little bit of instruction manual on what the various pHs that you're looking for should be. You got to go down your garden, grab some samples. Don't just take one point. You want to be getting a spread of samples from throughout the garden, from various depths as well. So I'm just grabbing a small pinch from half a dozen different spots around this bed. So I want to get this bed hasn't had any lime or fertiliser in it for a while. I just pulled some plants out that have been growing in it for 6 months or so. So it's just a matter of seeing what we're at with the pH, whether I need to add some lime, whether the pH is okay. And I've got a feeling it might be a bit acidic. So I'm just taking about 6 pinches. That one I just went a little bit deeper. So the more spots the better. You're just getting a more representative sample. So this is the contents of the kit. So we've got a little card here which gives us the colour that we're using to measure what pH the soil is. So we've got all the way from 2 up to 9.5 or 10. Colour is very important. We've got our little instruction manual here, so it tells you what pH is and the normal range that you want for pH. We've got our indicator fluid. This is universal indicator. It's a range of different dyes that change colour at different pHs. And we've got our white powder here. This is barium sulfate, and this soaks up. The reason why this is used is because it's white, and it also soaks up liquids really easily. So what I've got here is I've just gone down to the garden and I've got a few samples. This one here, this is a soil from a bed that hasn't been fertilised or limed in a while. It's had some things growing in it I've just pulled out. So I'm interested to know what the pH of that is, because some of the things growing in that bed are taking a little bit longer than I thought. This here is some compost. I'm expecting that to be a little bit acidic. This here is some soil from a bed that I've just recently planted out. I've put some fertiliser in it, I put lime in it. I've been using some nitrogenous fertilisers in that one as well. Everything's growing really well in that, so I want to see where we're sitting with that. I've got a feeling that'll be around the 6.5. And this is dolomite. So dolomite is calcium magnesium carbonate. That's going to be very alkaline, so I'm expecting that to be around the 9 or 10. So let's have a look. So we're waiting approximately 1 minute for that indicator fluid to get taken up into the barium sulfate, white powder, and after a minute we'll use the colour to tell us what the pH is. Coming up to 50 seconds now. So remember, this is the soil that hasn't been manured or fertilised or had any lime added to it for quite some time. It's had a lot of organic matter, so I'm expecting it to be a little bit acidic. Let's have a look at this. That looks to me like it's closest to 4.5, maybe even 4. So it's quite acidic. Okay, I'm just going to wash that down and then we're going to do the next one. Okay, so we're just going to collect our second sample. So this is a piece of compost. I'm expecting this to be quite acidic because it's mainly organic matter, and organic matter contains a lot of humic acid. So I'm just putting a level, it's probably a bit much, level teaspoon type amount on the test plate. We're going to grab our indicator fluid, and then we're just going to put that into the soil until it's a thick paste, and stir that up with a clean stirrer. I'm just using a pen because that's all I've got. If you've got a piece of clean plastic, that'll be better. One interesting thing about compost and organic matter is that it's quite hydrophobic, so it's difficult to get it to soak up liquid, but once it does get wet, and it stays wet fairly well. But it's another problem when you add organic matter to your soil. It can sometimes be very difficult to water the soil, or water your plants, because the water will run off the surface of the organic matter, and it's got to do with the electrical properties of the organic matter. There's a lot of charged surfaces, so the water doesn't naturally want to stick to it. Okay, so that's all stirred around. So what I'm going to do now is add my white barium sulfate powder onto the top. Then we're going to wait for 1 minute, and we're going to see what the colour looks like in 1 minute. It's important to get the timing right because the colour does change over time. When you first put the barium sulfate on, it'll be a bit sort of indicating a little bit more alkaline, but as it soaks it up, it goes more of the acidic colour. So you've got to really let it go for that 1 minute. So I'll just put our card next to it. So we're looking after 1 minute, so we've got about another 40 seconds or so to go, but in 40 seconds time we'll be looking at the colour. I mean, I probably put a little bit too much barium sulfate on there, but we'll still be able to see. And we want to match that to the closest colour that we can see on the card, and that'll tell us what the pH is. Okay, 10 seconds to go. Okay, that probably wasn't the best test there, but to me it looks like around the 5. I'll just zoom in now. There's a bit of barium sulfate that hasn't quite soaked up yet, but to me that's somewhere between 4.5 and 5. So for our first sample we had 4.5 and 4. Now we're on 5, so the pure compost is about 5. I'm just going to turn this over, use the other side. Now I'm going to use this soil, which is soil that's had some compost and lime added to it, and things are growing really well in this. And I'm just curious to see why that's the case. Is it because of the fertiliser? Is it because of the fact that it's been limed? It could be a combination of both. Let's just have a look, see what it is, and I think this will be closer to 7. Could be wrong though. Putting a universal indicator in, using a clean stirrer, stirring that around into a thick paste. Might have put a little bit too much universal indicator in, so I'm just going to add a little bit more soil to that. Stir that in. Okay, now we're putting on the barium sulfate white powder. Try not to overdo it this time. And we're waiting for 1 minute. Right, that's about the minute. And to me it looks like it's around the 5.5. There might be some 6 in there, but 5.5 or 6, so it's still quite acidic. There's a bit of room for improvement here. And just as a final one, I'm just going to do it here on the core flute. This is dolomite, so dolomite's very alkaline. I'm just going to put the indicator in, mix this up, clean stick. You can already see it's got that sort of little purplish colour. And just put some of this on top. In 1 minute. Okay, coming up to a minute now, and there's some little specks of green, but a lot of it's gone that purple colour. So it's getting towards the probably around the 8. It touches of 7, but it's definitely alkaline, to neutral to alkaline. Thought it would have been actually higher than that. Some of it's actually in here, some of it's purple, so it's up around the 9, 10.